Hey, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Remember that last time we had Nick Bogdanovich on from Boomers? He's the head of trading. And I asked you if you ever did any sports betting. And what did you say?
I've done it for other people.
Have you...
Since? No.
Okay. Well, you're killing me, Smalls. What is with you? Why aren't you sports
I don't
betting?
know enough about sport. I don't follow sports. It's just my thing, unfortunately.
You know, if this podcast thing doesn't work out, maybe I'll open up like an online class that teaches such young gentlemen and ladies such as yourself to how to sports trade.
Maybe.
Yeah.
See, if I was going to sports bet, it would be about hockey, and then I would have lost money because I would have bet on the Knights.
See, that's what it is. You bet with your heart, not with your mind.
Exactly.
But what are you going to do? Well, listen, we had a great time talking with Nick. He's the head of trading at Boomers Sportsbook, and we had such a great time that not only did we have Nick, I wanted to have Joe Asher, the president and CEO, on this show, and lo and behold, we have Joe Asher, the president and CEO of Boomer Sportsbook. Welcome to the show, Joe. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to check out your digs, which are very nice.
Oh, I appreciate that. What did you think of the Nick episode?
I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
Look, Nick's had such a great career.
Yes.
And I always learn something new every time I listen to him talking about stuff.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff you've heard before, some of it's new, and I like the interaction and the back and forth with him. I thought it was great.
I'll tell you what, I didn't know Nick before meeting him that day, but I could kind of get a feel for his personality after a couple minutes of talking with him. I feel like he had a little bit of a shell at the beginning, but I feel like at the end of the episode, I opened up a little bit. I feel like I cracked that shell just a little bit, and that right there, it was the greatest accomplishment for me, in my opinion, right there. But I don't feel like I have a shell that I'm dealing with here with you. I feel like you're pretty open. I've seen you on the Mike Davis episode that you guys did. Mike's a friend of mine, and yeah, you're very open and outgoing. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's funny. Long time ago, Nick and I both. Nick was the head of trading for William Hill. I was the CEO. And the folks from London came over. It was a British company. They came over and they did these personality tests.
Okay.
And then you had to go stand in one spot along the wall, depending on what you got.
Okay.
Nick and I were the exact same. Nobody else in the company that was there was in that category.
Yeah.
We just sort of had the same personality, which we never knew. Didn't know about it beforehand, and had a perfectly good relationship.
That's so funny.
That then sort of opened up the relationship between us.
Nice. Yeah, it was great learning about Nick. I'm very excited to learn about you. I'll tell you what, though. I do know that you're a very humble guy. You're successful at what you do, but you're very humble, and you're not one to toot your own horn. So I'm going to toot your own horn for you, if you don't mind. After doing our research on your background and Boomers, you're a huge deal in the sports betting history. Did you know this, by the way?
I wouldn't say in the sports betting history.
You don't think so?
A lot of people have sort of built up the business, and then you pass the baton along to the next person and the next person. So at some point in there, the baton got passed to me, and I've tried to move it forward as best I can, and I've taken a liking to the business, and it's worked out well.
I love that for you. How long have you been involved professionally in the sports betting world?
So back in 2007, I started working on a company that was named Brandywine.
Yes.
And that was a racetrack where I worked at as a kid. And when you start your own company, one of the things is you get to pick the name. And so I started working on Brandywine in 2007. We opened for business in 2008. So, going on 20 years now.
Is it the obvious reason as to why you called it Brandywine, or explain to me why Brandywine?
Yeah. So I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, and the name Brandywine is very common in that area. There was a Revolutionary War battle fought along the banks of the Brandywine River, which flows through Delaware and Pennsylvania. It actually didn't, do very well for the Americans, and it was on I think September 11th, 1777, maybe. So it was like the first bad September 11th.
Yeah.
And General Washington had to retreat from the Brandywine, but as a result of that river and that general area, there's a Brandywine 100, and there's a bunch of businesses called Brandywine. There's a Brandywine High School, and there was a racetrack where I started going with my dad from my very earliest years. It was called Brandywine Raceway.
Okay.
And I got a job working there when I was 16 years old, and it was always just a very special place for me. Yeah. So That's why the company was called Brandywine.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. That was very the opposite of what I thought it was. I thought you were just a big drinker and you're a fan of brandy and wine.
I'm not really
Way
into
off.
brandy. I'll drink wine once in a
Okay.
while, but
Good.
yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with brandy anyway.
At what point before your professional side of things, when you got into the sports trading, sports betting industry, or even just anything related to it, were you a casual sports bettor yourself?
You know, I grew up around the gambling business.
Sure.
So my dad was a gambler, and he'd bet on everything. And he'd bet on sports. He'd go to the racetrack like Brandywine in Delaware Park. He'd go to the casinos in Atlantic City. So, you know, I kind of just grew up in that environment. I was shooting dice in the back of a butcher shop by the time I was 9.
Look at you.
When I was 12, I went to the library and checked out a book written by a guy named Ken Houston on card counting, and he was one of the first really great card counters. And, you know, bought 8 decks of cards and used to sit there practicing counting. And went to Atlantic City for the first time when I was 14. My dad decided I was far enough along, and he took me down to a costume shop in Wilmington, got me a fake mustache, and then he staked me in Atlantic City. And then, you know, I got the the job at Brandywine.
Yeah, sure.
Became the youngest track announcer in the country back when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And so I just sort of had this upbringing in that environment, right? It's very different from the world my kids are growing up in, for sure. But, you know, you don't know any different. And I just sort of took to that and really liked it.
That's interesting. Did you, without getting too personal, but I am very intrigued on the personal side in the relationship with you and your dad. My dad is not to the point where he is buying fake mustaches for me, but he definitely is a major influence of how I got into the sports betting. And sports betting for me is a very big part of my life. Do you feel like the relationship with you and your dad brought you closer because he got you involved with it? Or do you feel like you held a little, maybe not animosity, but just a little difference between him and you because you were such at a young age and he was kind of forcing you into it?
He didn't force me into it, but it was our bonding time,
Okay.
right? Like that was the time when I'd get to spend time with my dad.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously, you know, people do different things. I take my son to Buffalo Wild Wings on, you know, for the games on Sunday. And, you know, but he used to take me to the track and I loved it. I just, cause I was with him and, you know, I'd try to tell him who to bet. I was a little statistics geek, would clip the box scores out of the newspaper and try to tell him who to bet on in the baseball games. And so that was sort of our childhood bonding, you know, and for him, you know, gambling became a real problem. He developed a gambling problem as a compulsive gambler. It caused a lot of harm for him. You know, for me, I didn't have that sort of addiction to it.
Good.
And so but I've always been very cognizant around it. And I've just enjoyed it. You know, long before I moved to Las Vegas, you know, I'd come out here 3-4 times a year, like so many other people do. Come out for, you know, the first weekend of March Madness or for the playoffs in the NFL, something like that, and you know, hang out with a group of guys for the weekend or whatever. And I've always loved it. When I was a little kid, there used to be this TV show called Vegas with Robert Urich. And the opening was like the facade of some of the legendary casinos. I think it was like, you know, the Stardust was in it. And so I just had this fascination with Las Vegas from a very early age. But I never came out here. Like, you know, first time I got out to Las Vegas was after I worked at the racetracks for a while. I got out of it for a while, went to law school, practiced law. So I'd actually just graduated law school. I think when I first came out to Las Vegas, a buddy of mine was coming out for a conference or something. And it was like, wow. I mean, it was so cool because I had hyped it up so much in my mind. And then I was there. And there it was here. And just loved it. And, you know, maybe at that time I kind of thought, you know, well, geez, maybe I should stay because, like,
How old were you at this time?
Great.
21, 22?
A little bit older. It would have been like 25, 26, something like that, mid-20s. You know, I'm glad I didn't move out at that time. I wouldn't have met my wife, and so who knows what life would have been like. My kids would be different, and who knows. So it's all worked out great. But I think it was like a real cool era back then, and I love the history of Las Vegas, and it just, you know. it's probably in my blood just from my youth, but it's been a great run. I've been out here 20 years, and
Good for you.
it's been a great run.
You know, it's funny. Very rarely do things that when they're hyped up in your mind, do they meet the expectations once you actually see it or you go to it or whatever. And I agree with you. Vegas for me was hyped up in my mind to an extent that there's no way it could match my expectations, and it did. It did help that the first time I came out here, I left up winning money, and that was probably the worst thing to ever happen to me because I could do it anytime then after that. But it was, you know, Vegas is that rare beast that does exceed expectations if you have fun, if you're not out of control or you're with the right people. So totally get that. When let me just understand this. So your dad helped you understand the sports betting side of things growing up. When you were in charge of the racetrack, who helped you understand the business side of it?
Yeah, well, I wasn't in charge. I was working there.
Okay.
The guy who hired me was the head of publicity, a guy named Marv Bachrod. And, he helped me learn that aspect of it. And then I became very close with the guy who was the president of the racetrack, who was this guy named Hap Hansen, who really became a lifelong mentor to me, and I stayed very friendly with him until he died, and he lived in like to 96 or something. Wow. But he played a seminal role in my life because I was in school at the time, but I didn't really like school, and I'd much rather be at the racetrack. But he conditioned my employment at Brandywine on staying in school.
Okay.
Like in order to work at the racetrack, I had to stay in school. And that was a very selfless thing, right? Because if I'm not in school, then I'm probably a better employee in the short term for Brandywine, and I'm 100% focused on that instead of having to focus on my studies. But he really wanted me to stay in school, and I did barely by the hair of my chinny chin chin. It wasn't easy because especially when I got to college, I didn't really have anything in common with a lot of people at school. Because I had grown up in this weird world of gambling, and I just much prefer to be at the track than sitting in a classroom.
That's so funny. Hap Hansen, by the way, what a fantastic name! What a great name that is.
He was an amazing story in and of himself. Sort of grew up in very humble circumstances. Yeah. Wound up going to the Naval Academy, and then was part of the greatest generation. Served in the Pacific in World War II, and then when he eventually got out of the Navy, wound up becoming ultimately president of this racetrack.
What's something that he passed down to you that still sticks with you to this day? I'm sure there are a lot of things, but what's one of them?
Yeah, a lot of things. But he was a man of integrity, and just very a distinguished gentleman sort of thing, right? And sort of really from him and from a couple of other people who were mentors of me, really helped me understand how to act, how to behave, how to conduct yourself. A lot of stuff like that I didn't really get from my dad, who had his own set of challenges. And so I got it from other people and certainly from Hap.
Love that. Are you a Hap Hansen to anybody right now?
Not in that same way. I mean, I definitely try to be a positive influence on the younger people in my life, obviously, with my kids, but also some of the younger colleagues we have. At Boomers, we have sort of, Boomers is to some extent, there's a little bit of getting the old band back together again, and a number of us worked at William Hill, including Nick and Dave Grohlman, who's our head of operations, our head of HR, Debonique Blackburn, Dave Lichterman, who works in operations, and others. Yeah. And so there's definitely, the old band. Yeah. But then it's like the Eagles at the Sphere, right? Then we got the new, the new members as well, and we got a number of people in their 20s, and they know about the business from maybe a customer side, but I'm, trying to help them learn it from the business side.
Yeah, and by the way, did you see the Eagles at the Sphere?
I have. Saw it twice. Yeah. Oh, I thought it was great. Phenomenal. Really enjoyed it. Yeah. Really
did you see them when Glenn was still around or no?
Once yes, once no.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eagles are. I haven't seen them in the Sphere, but I saw them when he was still around, and it was a phenomenal show. All of them were there. It was such a great time.
Pretty cool that his son is there now,
love it.
right? Like how
awesome is that?
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, how did you get from Brandywine to? I'm assuming the next big milestone in your professional career was William Hill, right?
Yeah. So Brandywine Raceway and other racetracks as a kid, then practiced law, then got out of law, and ultimately made my way out here to Las Vegas in 2006. Brandywine was William Hill at the time was a British company, publicly traded on the London Stock Exchange, and they decided they wanted to move into the U.S. At the time, nobody in the U.S. had heard of William Hill, really. I mean, to the extent you had, it was a winery in Northern California.
Was it really? I didn't know.
Yeah, it still is. And there's a bunch of stories with that. But they bought 3 small businesses when they came into the U.S., and one of them was Brandywine.
Oh, no way.
So that's how I wound up working for William Hill. So they bought my company and asked me to stay on as the CEO of the business. That was 2012. Nice. And then, that business sort of had a great run, really a great run early into mobile and in-play betting and a good team of people, terrific team. And that business ultimately was acquired by Caesars in 2021.
Okay.
And, at the start, I think William Hill maybe had 12% of the market in Nevada, and
Sure.
it was much, much greater by the time of the acquisition by Caesars.
Yeah.
I left the day the deal closed.
Strategically?
I was kind of burned out,
Yeah.
and I'm not really like a super big company guy. By that point, I think we had 1,100 people working for William Hill in the U.S., and that was kind of a lot. Very amicably, no issues whatsoever.
Yeah.
When I told Tom Reeg, who's the CEO of Caesars, that I'd prefer to go, very amenable and worked out great. So took some time off, and then got a call from IGT, which is well-known Nevada company. They had a small sports betting hardware software business, like at the B2B level, a system that they provided to a number of operators across the country, a bunch of tribal casinos, and others. I had a non-compete with William Hill, but went to work for IGT because it wasn't really competitive, and Caesars was good with that.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a period of time. And
did you have to let Caesars know that?
I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I did, and got their permission to do it because I didn't want to have any problems, and they had treated me well.
Yeah.
On the way out. So wanted to do the right thing.
That's one of the things I'm noticing, definitely about you and definitely about Nick as well, is you're both very well respected in at least what industry would you call it? Like the sports
betting. Yeah.
Right, sports betting industry, especially on the professional level. You guys are very very well respected. Was he in the Sports Betting Hall of Fame?
He is indeed.
That's wild.
He is indeed.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. I'm sorry. So you're at IGT. What's your role at IGT at this point?
I was the president of sports betting for IGT, and really was brought in to help organize the business. And
Get it on
there
the
wasn't
track.
Anybody in a senior management role who had a real deep understanding, and certainly not the operator's perspective that I had. And I brought in some people to that business
To get you there, yeah.
to do it, including somebody I had worked with at Brandywine, named Joe Bertoloni. And after a while,
What's something that you do bring to the table? Like what's first order of business for you when you get over at IGT and you say, oh, I see that this needs to be fixed?
yeah, the way a number of the deals were structured didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The customer support model wasn't right, and they weren't sort of dealing with their partners the way I thought it should be done.
Yeah.
And so those were like a couple of them, and then just building out the team of people. And so after a couple of years or so, I had pretty much done,
What needed to be done?
what they needed me to do, and then that jived time wise with something that sort of came up totally out of the blue. I got appointed by President Biden to chair the board of something called the Woodrow Wilson Center.
Really?
Which is headquartered. It's based in Washington, and it's a public policy institute focused on foreign policy and foreign affairs. So I wound up switching to part-time at IGT. They were very supportive of me sort of doing this and supporting the work with the Wilson Center.
Hold on a second. I feel like we passed over the whole Joe Biden asking you to play this role. Did he reach out to you? Did one of his colleagues or somebody, his associates, reach out to you, or did you have a relationship with him prior, or how does this even come about?
Yeah, so I'm from Delaware originally, as we discussed, and met Joe Biden at a fairly early age, and he had at the time, he had two sons. Bo, I think, had passed by this point in time, but Bo, Hunter, and I are all roughly the same age, and so I knew them when we were young lawyers in Wilmington together.
No way.
And I'd been a supporter of his for many years. I talked earlier about learning from seeing other people, and I certainly learned a lot from just watching Joe Biden over the years, quite frankly, and certainly the way to treat people.
Sure.
The way he treated people was
That's fantastic.
Was a real lesson for me. But in terms of getting appointed to the Wilson Center, it just kind of came up out of the blue. I got a text message from somebody who was running the personnel office in the White House and said, "Hey, there's this board position that came up, and we think you might be a good fit for it, and would you take a look at it?" And, so they sent me an email, told me about it, and did my research, and then it was to be on the board. It wasn't to be the chair. And then I said yes. And then, the president, the board is sort of half set by statute, and the other half are presidential appointees.
Okay.
And so I was going to be, appointed to the board, and then I was actually having lunch in Chinatown, and I get this phone call from a 202 number, and didn't know the number, let it go to voicemail, and I didn't know if they're trying to sell me solar panels or what, but and I listened to the message, and it's this woman in the White House saying, "Hey, you can call us as soon as possible. We met with the president today to go over the Wilson Center board appointees." And so I called her back, and she said, we met with him, and he said he wants you to be the chairman. Okay. So will you do it? And I thought for a second, it's this is totally out of my realm, right? This is Washington. I'm in Las Vegas, and I'm in the sports betting business, and this is foreign policy. But
did you have a chance to actually have a conversation with him at some point along the line there?
Not before I was appointed. I mean, I've had many conversations with him over the years, but not about the Wilson Center between the time I got that phone call and when I got appointed. Subsequently, I obviously talked to him about it. So anyway, switched to part-time at IGT, did that, and then all along the way, ever since I left William Hill in 2021, every few months I'd get this phone call from somebody, and it was something along the lines of, "Hey, it's kind of not the same since you left. What are my options for sports books in Nevada? What should I do? I'm not happy. It's just different now." And I walked them through the choices, talked to them about what IGT had, and the option to do it yourself, or what their options were. But this would, and sometimes they would say, "Well, you ever think about getting back in it?" And I said, "Nah, I don't think so." And as I say, this just kind of continued, every 3-4 times a year,
Of course.
every few months.
That's a good problem.
And then
to
I
have.
just decided,
thing.
you know what? Maybe it's time to get back into it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to get back into it. And so started thinking about it. I don't know, maybe it's 23, 24, 2024, early in the year. And then decided, okay, it's kind of, it's time, and left IGT that summer, and started working on, putting boomers together.
What's the first order of business when you're like, all right, you know what? I'm motivated. I'm committed to starting my own thing. First order of business is what?
I started, thinking about, okay, can we get the senior team back together? What's the plan? Why am I
gang back together?
Why am I going to do this?
Right.
And the point really was to, I thought there was room in the market to compete with William Hill, right? The William Hill business is a monster business. It's a great business, right? And it was a great business when Caesars bought it in 2021, and they've picked up the baton and they've continued it on, right? And I thought there was room in the market for a competitor, and so started thinking about the people to try to get to do it with me that I mentioned earlier, right? Dave Grohlman, Nick, and Devin Eek. And so kind of started there. Also, very early on, had to figure out how to get the license to do it. So, in order to operate sports books, you have to have your core non-restricted gaming license. And
For the people that may not understand that, and I think Jonathan Joss will explain that, but do you mind explaining what the difference is between a restricted gaming license and a non-restricted gaming license?
Yes, so a restricted license allows you to operate 15 slot machines.
Like a Dottie's.
Like a Dottie's, or Jackpot Jonies, or PTs, something like that. And a non-restricted license allows you to operate a full casino.
Sure.
In order to sort of get that core non-restricted license to operate, there's a room requirement in Clark County. You have to have 300 hotel rooms to have a non-restricted casino.
Sure.
There might be some exceptions for grandfathered license, but that's the general rule. Which is why, like, I think Red Rock might have 302 hotel rooms.
Oh, do they really?
All right. Right.
I love
that. Same in Washoe County, where Reno is.
Yeah, right.
No room requirement in Elko. And I was very familiar with Elko, and I've liked Elko a lot. Elko's a mining town in northeastern Nevada.
Yep.
They have a county fair every year where they have live horse racing, and so I go up every year with my son for the fair. They let me announce races up there.
No way.
So I'll call a race a day when I'm up at Elko.
That's awesome.
Kind of back into the race calling.
Yeah, look at you.
There's actually one on YouTube of me calling a race at the Elko Fair. If you put in
Brian, we're definitely going to look that up.
Elko Fair, you can hear
absolutely.
one. So anyway, I've had this. I like going to Elko, and I was up there for the fair actually in the Labor Day weekend of 2024, and was just kind of asking around, hey, does anybody know of a non-restricted license that might be available for sale? And sure enough, somebody said, hey, the old commercial hotel, they've pretty much closed it as a casino. They've shut it down, but they've kept the license active. They open once a quarter.
Okay.
In order to keep a license active, you can open once a quarter for 8 hours, and that keeps the license active.
That's wild.
So what they would do is twice a year, they'd open it, 4 p.m., 8 hours till midnight, and then, until 8 a.m. the following morning, and that covers off 2 quarters.
Yeah.
But it keeps the license active.
Yeah.
So I reached out to a lawyer who's always represented me and done a great job, Scott Shear.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, any idea who owns the commercial? And can you help me
Work
get
your
in
magic
touch with him, figure it out?
Yeah.
And sure enough, it happened. The guy who was running the place is actually somebody who I'd known for years. So anyway, that was one of the first things. So got the rights, the gaming rights at the commercial, and they no longer operate it. For the 8 hours a quarter.
Yeah.
They've transferred the license to me, and we built a sort of small sports book counter. On a small piece of the property that we're leasing from them.
One of the things that Jonathan said about that is when he was so young, he really didn't have much because they had to go through a very detailed background check. And for him, it was like, he's got a couple bucks here and there, but didn't have houses or kids or anything at that time. You were in a very different part of your life. Did you have to have that same in-depth background check that he did back in the day as well? Or was it because it was transferred, you were able to get a little leniency on that?
Well, so the first time I got licensed in Nevada and received sort of a non-restricted license was in 2006.
Okay.
And it was even before, it was the job I had when I came to Las Vegas and before I started Brandywine.
Yeah.
So that was the more thorough because they were starting from, when I was born all the way up until that point in time. Ever since, what they do once you get the license for the first time, you start with where they left off, right?
Okay.
So the first was from when I was born up until 2006. Then when I got licensed for Brandywine, it was sort of the stub period between 2006 and 2008.
Yeah.
Then when I got licensed for William Hill, it was 2008 till whatever year that was.
So they don't go back before because they've
already investigated that.
Exactly.
They've already done that, right? And so this time around, I'd gotten licensed again during my tenure at IGT. So when it came time to starting Boomers, it was probably a couple of years from when I had been most recently licensed. So it's a very thorough process. But I've always thought that I've always found the agents who do the investigation to be very fair and reasonable, but very thorough.
Yeah.
Like they're very thorough. I mean, the first time I remember, you had to produce a bunch of checks, canceled checks, and
Wow.
the guy said, what was this check
What's
for?
this for? Yeah.
Yeah, what's this check for?
That's so funny.
Right, and you explain what it's for, and or why did you transfer money to this person?
Wow.
Right, and so it's it's very much looking at following the money type of thing, trying to understand who you associate with, and so forth. And then they talk to people who know you. I've been listed as a reference by a number of people who have gotten gaming licenses subsequent to that. And, they always, ask a bunch of questions and so forth.
That's so great. So after all this, in Elko, Boomers is born, basically. Was it Boomers at the time?
It was Boomers from day one. So Boomer was a dog that we had.
What kind of dog?
He was a Dachshund Cocker Spaniel mix. We got him at the, it's now called the Animal Foundation. I think it was Lead Animal Shelter back then.
Love it.
And Boomer the dog was actually named after a racehorse from the 1980s. There was a racehorse that came down out of Canada named Boomer Drummond, who became one of the top older pacers in the country, raced at the Meadowlands a bunch of times. And I always loved the name, and the announcer would go, and there goes the Boomer. Right? And there's some of his old races you can still find on YouTube and Facebook. And so that was the namesake of Boomer, Boomer the dog.
Yeah.
And then Boomer the dog died on Thanksgiving Day in 2024. He had a great run. He was 17.
Good for him.
He had a tremendous run.
Yeah.
I mean, you sort of a dog would sign up for that kind of thing. It's like Hap Hansen living, to 96, I think it was, and he was great. And so that was kind of the genesis of the name Boomers.
That's great. And I love how Boomer goes from a horse to your dog to a sports business to if I ever have a first child, it's going to be named Boomers. It's going to be great. It's passed down from generation to generation. I love it.
And it's also got some sports connotation to it, right? You got Boomer Esiason, Chris Berman on ESPN. You got Boomer Sooners. So there's sort of a sports element to it as well.
That's great. Brian, do you know any of those? Do any of those names ring a bell to you? No?
No.
Ugh, jeez. I have my hands full with you. So as president and CEO, give me a run through of what your day-to-day is typically like. What do you do besides putting the team together, besides going out, shaking hands and making connections? What's your day-to-day like?
Yeah, well, it's a number of things. Right? So there's the business development aspect where we're chasing new business and we're hungry and trying to expand and so signing up the casinos. And I think one of the key things to know about the business and really one of the reasons to do the business is in Nevada, in order to get a mobile betting account, you have to physically go into a casino to sign up.
Yeah.
Okay. Other states, you can sit on your couch and download the app and electronically fund it, and away you go. But Nevada maintains this requirement to sign up in person. And that's one of the keys to success of the William Hill business, because they got like 100 retail locations spread across the state where people could go to sign up.
Now, do you like that? Or do you wish it was you didn't have to go into the casino?
Well, if that wasn't the requirement, I wouldn't have bothered to do the business. That's
Really?
what gives us a shot to compete against, these big companies who have, essentially unlimited funds.
Sure.
Right? DraftKings and FanDuel, for instance, dominate the market outside Nevada. They're not in Nevada. The reason they're not in Nevada is because of this in-person sign-up requirement. Right? They could go and buy a casino and have one location where people could go and sign up for a mobile account, but that's not enough to build a business. And so much of the business, like the vast majority of the business is on mobile these days, right? There's still a retail sports book. There's a retail experience. I was just over at our sports book at Silver Sevens, at Flamingo in Paradise. And there's people hanging out there, sitting, watching the horse races, watching the games. But for the pure transaction of making the bet, you can just do it on your phone. It's so much easier. And away from the strip, it's like 85% of the business is on mobile. So the individual casinos, they're in part mobile acquisition sites and mobile customer service sites. Person can go in and make a deposit in cash. They can withdraw money. They got a question. There's somebody for them to go talk to. And so that requirement of the in-person sign-up, it gives us a shot.
Yes.
Like, I honestly wouldn't have tried to do the business if the regulation was different. Now, the reason for the regulation is the long-standing public policy in Nevada has been to encourage investment in brick-and-mortar casinos.
Oh.
Okay, and one way to do that is to tie the mobile sign-up to a physical casino.
Okay.
Now, you only got to go in once. Once you go in, you never have to go back. You can deposit electronically. Also, we're building out a network of deposit kiosks. We're in all the village pubs, for instance.
Yep. I see your signs outside of them.
So it's great branding,
Yes.
and people can fund their account in cash in the village pubs. They can do it at the Gold Mine Tavern on Water Street in Henderson. They can do it at Maddie's up in Elko. So once you go in to sign up, you don't have to go in ever again. A lot of people do because they want to deposit, they want to withdraw in cash, or they just want a different social experience of sitting around watching the games on the screen and cheering for your team. But it's that requirement that makes this business feasible.
And it gives you a shot.
Correct.
Love that. It, especially being the market is so big, and even just getting, I don't want to say a sliver, but being that you are an independent sports book here in Nevada, being able to have a sliver, I'm sure at least gets you to stand on your feet and able to continue to grow over time, which is huge for you guys, because your competitors are giants, right?
Yeah, no, look, that William Hill business, like I said, we built a hell of a business.
Yeah.
It's a great business, right? And the but there's a number of casinos who aren't crazy about being sort of in bed with Caesars, right? And just because Caesars might be their competitor,
Right.
And so, or they were dissatisfied with the attention that they were getting because they were a small property and didn't really matter to that big company. Whereas with us, they matter.
Yeah.
Right now, we're up to 12 locations. Gary Ellis, who owns the Village Pubs, but Gary stepped up first and let us move into Ellis Island, which is such a great locals property, right? It's a great location.
It really is.
And he's got a place out in Henderson called Casino Valley Verde.
Yeah.
All right, and so Gary was a very early supporter, which I'm very appreciative for. Great guy. Gary's such a great guy.
So actually, I asked Nick this question, and he said that's definitely a question for Joe. How'd you get into Ellis Island, by the way? Because and you kind of touched on it right there, but did you approach him? Did he approach you, or what partake?
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting story. I'd known Gary over the years from when I was working at William Hill, and we actually ran into each other at a funeral.
Okay.
There was a guy who worked for the old Leroy's business named John English. Great guy, longtime industry executive. He died way too early. And I went to his funeral, and Gary was there.
Huh.
And we kind of had a little, chat in the parking lot afterwards. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to get together with Gary and go have lunch with him. And at the time, he was trying to figure out what to do with the Sportsbook. And he was actually thinking about, John had talked to him about maybe getting into the business, and John English was going to get into the business possibly with Vic Salerno, who was a longtime guy in the business and one of the people that I talked about passing the baton to the next generation,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Vic kind of handed it to me, and I've tried to move it forward. And I actually was working for IGT at the time, and gave them, what IGT could provide. But then when I decided I was going to do it, I called Gary up and said, "Hey, I want to come by and talk to you about what I'm thinking about." And so that's kind of how it started. Went over to Ellis Island and had lunch with him, and it kind of went from there.
Building relationships, I could see, are such an important part of where you are today. I feel like not even just with Boomers, but just with the success in your career that you've had so far. It seems like even just the 20, 30 minutes that you and I have been able to meet, I feel like you're great at building relationships and maintaining them. It seems like too.
Well, I just like talk to people like like a regular person, and try to find out about them, and always try to be transparent and straight with them.
Which is hard to find these days.
Gary's just great. Gary's a great guy. Such a fascinating story of of what the Village Pub started with. The bar, and he was working there for his dad, and he's got. If you could ever get him to come onto the podcast, then, that'd be great. And he actually sent me a picture. He was at the fights at the White House last weekend.
That's so funny.
He's friends with Dana.
Yeah.
And he stepped up. I'm very appreciative because he stepped up and went first. He had the confidence that I would deliver and do it. And I think already, Nick had already agreed to come on board, and same with Dave Grohlman.
Yeah.
And actually, Debonique was working for Gary. She had left Caesars and was like the head of HR for Ellis Island and Gary's other properties. And before I would hire her back, I went and asked Gary for his blessing, because I didn't want to put him in a bad spot. And of course, he graciously said yes.
Love that.
And then it was just a number of other people who I had known previously. Up in Carson City, we're at the Casino Fandango, which was one of the very early Brandywine books, way back in 2008.
Coming full circle in this, I love it.
Yes, and I'd stayed friendly with the folks there, and some people have reached out to me for Boomers, and then I feel bad that I didn't call them first. And others, I've reached out to. A number of them are William Hill customers. Some of them, smaller places, didn't have a sports book at all, and I somehow got hooked up with them, and we've put in a sports book there. And so it's been that sort of a thing. But
for you,
just reaching out to people, and sometimes they don't call you back or they don't text you back. You keep chasing them. You keep chasing them. You keep chasing them.
You are a businessman through and through. I respect the hell out of that. Good for you. One of the things I like about Boomers, and out of the many things I already like, is you're very player friendly. I believe Nick answered this question. I asked him, what does fair actually mean when the sports book still makes money? But you guys talk about fair pricing. That's a big thing for you guys. Can you kind of elaborate what the fair pricing is when it comes to Boomers?
Sure. So why should a customer sign up for an account with Boomers, right? This is a very mature market for sports betting, and most people who want a sports betting account already have at least one.
Sure.
Right? They signed up with William Hill or with Stations or with MGM or Circa or whatever. And so why should they sign up for a Boomers account? And so how are we going to break in and compete? So we decided one way to do it was on price, and to compete on price and offer our product at a lower theoretical margin than what the competition might be doing. So Caesars, they have a corporate objective to get their margin up to 10%, right? To expand their hold percentage. I think it's now around 7. They want to get it up to 10. Wow. And the reason I know this is they put it in their investor presentation, right? It's right there, and it's right there. They're not shy about it, at least to the analyst community. Mm-hmm. Well, the way you do that is by charging more to consumers, right? So NFL, for instance, typically if you're going to bet on an NFL game, it's minus 110 to win 100. So if I want to bet the Eagles and you want to bet the Patriots, whatever, we got to each put up 110 to win 100. So $220 has now been wagered. The sportsbook is going to keep $10 and return $210. So if you win the bet, you get your 110 back plus your $100 profit.
Sure.
So you get your 210.
Which is common amongst 99%
totally common.
Of
sports betting. That's the way, broadly speaking, it works. Mm-hmm. And the guy who loses $110. Yep. Right? It was that way on the Golden Knights and the Hurricanes. So it's not limited to the NHL.
Exactly.
So the theoretical margin, so the house makes $10 on the 220 wagered in my hypothetical.
Yep.
Okay. In that scenario, the house has a theoretical margin of 4.55%. Okay. So what we noticed Caesars doing last football season, William Hill doing, is instead of 110 on each side, they went to 111 on one side, 110 on the other. Or, maybe it was minus 112, minus 110, Yeah. And on college football, it was even a greater, we would call that the split in the business. So higher theoretical margin. The other way you can increase prices is just to pay less on parlays, right? Because it's, if a guy hits a 5-team parlay, maybe he doesn't notice that instead of getting, $380, he's now getting $360. Right? And so that's another way to build in more margin on the product. So what we've done is actually the opposite. So I talked about minus 110 being the standard on the NFL. We said, what can we do to try to get people to sign up with Boomers? We said we're going to do minus 105. So we cut the margin in half. And so it's minus 105 on each side. So instead of 4.55%, now we've chopped it down to, 2.25.
Yep.
And we try to pay more on parlays, for example. And we're trying to do a lot with promotions as well. And the promotions are to drive engagement and, again, give people a reason to bet with Boomers. And we're, focused on what's interesting to Nevada bettors, right? So we're doing a lot of promos with the Golden Knights, for instance. We had a promo where I think if you bet $20 on the Knights to win and they scored a goal in the first period, we gave you $10 in free bets, right? Just bonus bets.
Phenomenal.
Just as a bonus. You still had your bet,
your
$20 bet or whatever it was. But now you get bonus bets. We did something called shutout insurance, where if you bet on somebody to score a goal in the game, because one of the things people like to do when they're betting a hockey game is, you might bet the Knights to win, or you might bet the total goals scored, but you also like to bet goal scores. Like I like to bet Carlson to score, right? Or, I'd have a feeling that maybe Stone's going to score. And so we had this thing called shutout insurance, where if you bet somebody to score and the team got shut out, right, we gave you your money back.
That's
right?
incredible.
Up to a certain amount. We capped it up to a certain amount. Anyway, a bunch of sort of Vegas-specific promos that we're trying to do. What's interesting to Vegas fans? Like, we were offering inflated payoffs, essentially boosts they call them, on the A's games that were played out in Summerlin recently.
Did you go to those?
I did not. I did not. I was too busy watching. And I went to the Knights game one night when they were playing out in Summerlin. A friend of mine said the wind was blowing out, and so the play was to bet over on total runs scored.
Did it hit?
Right? It did.
Love that.
It did. I think it hit the first day. I think it fell right on the number the second day, maybe.
So funny.
Anyway, what's interesting to Nevada bettors, right? Not just Vegas too, right?
You're all over Nevada.
Right? Looking to do things. What's going to be interesting to folks in northern Nevada, come football season. Maybe it's something with the Niners.
Right.
Maybe it's something with Boise State football, right? We're opening in a couple weeks in Jackpot, which is Jackpot's the border town with Idaho on Highway 93. So far northeastern corner in Nevada.
Yeah.
Right, the Four Jacks Casino up there, owned by the Jack family. They're four, a father and three sons, so that's the Four Jacks. So we're gonna open up there, and we'll certainly be focused on whether it's Niners. Obviously, we're going to be focused around the Raiders and doing stuff on the Raiders. We're getting ready to roll out a great promotion on the Aces, by the way. Aja Wilson, number 22. Super nice, by the way. I'm a big Aja
Have you
Wilson
met her?
fan. I have. One of the things when Biden was president is I'd get invited to these different events at the White House.
Yeah.
One was when they had the Aces Day at the White House.
Nice.
After they had won the championship. And I took my younger daughter there, and she got to meet Aja Wilson, who was so incredibly nice to her. Like, so kind.
Yeah.
First, when she went up to her and took a picture, and then we were getting ready to leave, we kind of went to the bathroom, and we ran into her by, the bathroom.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Did you have a good time? How cool is it to be at the White House?" She was so nice.
That's fantastic.
Right? So we're gonna do like a promo where, if you bet on a WNBA game, you get entered in a drawing to win tickets to the game when Indiana comes and Caitlin Clark comes to T-Mobile, right? Again, something tailored to Nevada customers, and so we're really trying to hit that, focus on Nevada, because these other big companies, MGM, nice people like them, Caesars, again, a lot of good people there.
Of course,
they're focused nationally. They're running these big businesses across the country, right? We're focused on one state.
Yes.
And so, these casinos who, don't really matter to a big monolith company, they sure as heck, matter to us. The Four Jacks matters to us. The Bonanza Casino in Reno, family owned, right? Russ Sheltra founded it in the early 1970s. His son Ryan is GM today.
Yeah.
They matter to us, right? Ellis Island matters to us. Silver Sevens matters to us. Ojos Locos, North Las Vegas, a great spot, doing a heck of a business during the World Cup. There's a Mexico game, coming up tomorrow when we're recording this. And, that place will be, packed, and, they matter to us.
That's so fun. And I feel like you're able to do this because this is some of the benefits of being an independent sportsbook is you have a lot more flexibility compared to the Caesars, compared to the bigger names, is that you can kind of swing for the fences, do some of these promotions, focus on be more focused on these local spots that us Vegas locals, that us Nevada locals, go to. And I love that for you, because I feel like it makes things more fun, because everybody was just stagnant and everybody was complacent with the minus 110. Everybody, honestly, I wouldn't have even known about the different payout for the parlay compared to what it used to be because of these investors and the decisions they're making. But with you guys and the promotions that you're running and the odds that you offer, being player focused and being player first, that gives you a tremendous opportunity to have more fun and kind of bring the fun back into sports betting. So it's not so always analytical. It's not always so serious, I guess. Like we can still enjoy the game while still making some money while watching it. And I feel like I've lost that as a sports bettor, and I'm glad to hear this from you.
Yeah, look, it should be about fun, right? If it's not about fun, right, it's not a good thing to be doing, right? It's really not. Look, the math is against the customer, right? We're in business to make money, right? And so what we're selling and providing to people is an entertainment experience. We're trying to make it fun, right? That's why we've got the dog mascot, right? That's broadly based on Boomer the dog. But it should be about fun, right? This is, a very small segment of the population, can make a living betting on sports, right? For the vast majority of the people, you're not going to make a living doing it.
Why is that?
Right? Just the math of it all, right? I talked about the 4.55% theoretical margin, or the 2.25% theoretical margin, but it's still 2.25%, right? So. Again, but people are doing it, for entertainment, to have an extra reason to watch the game, to make it more fun, right? You bet on, Carlson to score, you're hoping he scores. It just makes it more fun, right? And so that's what, sports betting is about, and that's what we're trying to, to focus on,
Yeah.
right? I'm not a fan of when people, try to mislead people and saying, oh, it's easy to win, right? And look, these beautiful casinos that that I drove by to get here, right? They don't build them because everybody goes in there and wins money, right? That's
Vegas
not why,
wasn't built.
right? That's not why they're
built on
there.
winners, yeah.
Like I look, Red Rock, Durango, Station's a competitor of ours at some level, right? But I love visiting their properties. They do a great job, right? They don't build those because everybody goes in there and wins. That's not how it works, But it's about the entertainment of it, and so I don't like gambling being misrepresented as an easy way to make a living, right? That's not it, right? But it should be about having fun, having a little bit more excitement into the game, having a bit more reason to care. We're into the World Cup now. People want to bet on the U.S. Just, they're going to cheer for the U.S. anyway.
Sure, why not?
Right? But, now they make a little bit of money out of it, and maybe they bet Pulisic to score in the game, and they care about it a little more. Or they're watching the Aces, and they want to bet on the number of points that Asia is going to get, right? So it's just to make it more fun.
You know what I like about you is you're a businessman through and through. You've established that. You obviously know about sports betting too, but I like that you have a good mix of both. It's a healthy balance of being business savvy, but also knowing your shit when it comes to sports betting. I can listen to you talk about this all day long. Like, listen, you and I can just go out to have lunch, and it'll turn into a 5-hour lunch and just me listening and asking you questions because I'm so intrigued by everything you're saying, and I love it. I don't know.
Let's do it. I'm totally up for that.
and we're bringing Brian too, so Brian can learn a little bit more about sports betting and understand the -110, -105, that whole thing. You ready for it?
It's all foreign language to me, right?
I know it is.
Yeah, but you pick it up by listening and just being around it,
Exactly. And there's no judgment. Listen, you can ask questions too. We don't judge. We don't,
when I was back in law school,
the
night before a test, I'd study for the test, but then I'd put the textbook under my pillow, just in case like osmosis kind of worked.
You never know.
There's no, as long as it didn't affect my sleep, there's no downside to it. So you take a shot.
That's why I go to the Sportsbook sometimes, so I can get the physical ticket, and I put it under my pillow too. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. You never know. Yeah. Do you? Obviously, you're well versed in horse riding. Do you follow? I'm assuming you follow NHL. Do you follow the NFL as well, pretty closely?
NFL is my number one sport to follow as a fan. I love the NFL. I think the product is so great.
Yeah.
I'm a lifelong Philadelphia Eagles fan, having grown up in Delaware. And, it's great to be an Eagles fan these days, but,
of course.
It wasn't so easy.
You had a rough...
You had to wait a long time. In fact, one of the... somebody one time asked me, what's one of the worst days you had as a bookmaker in your role? And I said,
sure.
It was actually... the year the Eagles beat the Patriots to win the Super Bowl, the money that was on the Eagles, and so we needed the Patriots.
Yes.
Right? So that need was sort of conflicting with this lifelong passion of the Eagles. So I didn't really enjoy it when they won. I was kind of bummed out because we had lost money.
Yeah, sure.
And I just didn't really enjoy it. Now I subsequently got over it, and that was the Philly special game, which is certainly the most iconic play in Philly sports history.
As a Patriots fan myself, I remember that play all too well.
I love watching. I still watch it. I still you see those the mic'd up videos of it. It's great. And so just I love the NFL product. I think they've gotten it so good. The games have been so good. Super Bowl wasn't so great this year because Seattle was so dominant. But it had been good for a number of years.
What do you think of?
So anyway, I enjoy it.
What do you think of the Raiders this season? Mendoza.
I love what they've done with. Look, we'll see if Mendoza makes it in the NFL. So many guys you think are gonna don't.
Yep.
Certainly, you have to love what he did, at Indiana. And I love the fact that they brought in Cousins as to be the mentor. So they don't have to start Mendoza game one. Hopefully, if they're having a decent season, maybe Mendoza doesn't start till very late in the year. But they've got they're in a tough division. They got a tough road, to make the playoffs. But they got the beginnings of the pieces of a team. You know, they really do.
Yeah.
With Genty and Bowers. You know, I totally get the decision to try to get draft picks for Crosby, given where he is. But you know what? Maybe it didn't happen for a reason. He's meant to be here. So, you know, you could certainly see the Raiders, you know, 2-3 years down the line as being a real serious team. And you didn't have that feeling in recent years
Correct.
before now. And so I think, you know, Cousins, such a great signing. Hopefully he and Mendoza get along well and can have a collaborative relationship. And you know, clearly the Raiders must have thought that was going to be the case when they brought Cousins in. And you know, or maybe he didn't even play at all, you know, this year. Wouldn't that be, you know, a great way to sit and learn and be mentored? You know, you look at Aaron Rodgers as, you know, as a young quarterback, and then Jordan Love, and how they've been able to do it, you know, quarterback to quarterback, you know, from Favre to Rodgers to Love.
Rodgers even sat a few seasons behind Brett.
Right.
Like, it wasn't just one season. It was
and you know, the reports are, of course, that Favre wasn't mentoring him either.
Right.
He just was sort of learning by osmosis, like, you know, you with your ticket under the pillow, right?
And you and your
right. So, you know, if you have a willing mentor and a, you know, a smart, willing mentee like, you know, Mendoza appears to be, I think it's a great combination. So, you know, I'm still an Eagles fan. I think, you know, it's different with the Knights because maybe you didn't have that passionate hockey fandom, and of course the Knights were first, and you know, like, I love the Knights.
And we were here when the Knights were born too, so that's a different thing.
That's a different thing, and but yet you already had your NFL team, and so maybe it's not quite the same. But you know, I think the Raiders are probably everybody's number 2 NFL team at least, and you know,
why not?
And clearly gonna root for for them as long as they're not playing the Eagles.
Exactly, or not playing the Patriots. But do you see? I know last year because Boomer started. Was it August of last year? Is that correct in saying?
August 1st, we opened for business in Elko.
So you started right before the NFL college football season started. What are you doing differently this year because it's going to be here and before we know it?
Yeah, well, we have a lot more scale this year, right? Because then we had 3 locations, right? Elko and Gary's 2 properties, Ellis Island and Valley Verde. And now we got 12 at the moment. Jackpot will be number 13. Club Fortune North in North Las Vegas, the old Poker Palace, is going to hopefully it's going to be in July when they open. So that'll be 14. And then we get a couple more that'll be open before the NFL season as well. So for us, we have a lot more places where people can go to sign up, get their mobile account, where they can go to bet, deposit, and so forth. We want to continue to build out this network of deposit kiosks, more sports books. We're going to go back to the -105 as well. We're going to, you know, we hadn't really firmly committed to it, so this is the first time we're telling anybody that we're going to do it. But we're going to, you know, stick with the -105 to give people something to bet on, and then it's going to be based on what we've seen with the promos and the way people love these promos. We're going to do a lot more of that kind of stuff going forward. We'll certainly be doing it with the Raiders, and I mentioned, you know, with the Aces.
Yeah, sure.
And in Northern Nevada, maybe we'll do it with you know, teams that are relevant and players that are relevant, more relevant up there. And so I think we're going to do a lot more on the promotion side this football season, and really try to be relevant to as many people as we can.
Well said. How many years do you yourself see at the helm here? Do you see yourself for another 20, 30 years? What do you got? What do you got left in you?
Yeah, it's a great question, Andrew. You know, I have no idea. Look, I've been working my whole life. My dad had a newsstand in Wilmington, and I started working there as early as I can remember. Right, 5, 6 years old, I was manning the newsstand, and you know, we talked about, you know, working at the racetracks and stuff like that. So I don't think I'd be good at being retired, to tell you the truth. I wouldn't know what to do with my time. Right, and I'd be afraid that my brain's going to go to mush. So, you know, not interested in retirement at any point in, you know, that I can think of. I mean, Obviously, it's dependent on my health, and I don't take that for granted. I try to stay on top of that.
Health and family.
Everybody should totally try to be on top of that. Our youngest is 13. He's going to be going into 8th grade.
Yeah.
And so, after he's out of school, then maybe it's time to reassess, right? And if the kids are off, out of high school and off to college, if that's what they do, then maybe it's time to reassess. So that's kind of the way that
That's a good way of looking at it.
That's the way I sort of think about it. I very much enjoy what I'm doing.
Good.
I mean, that's been one of the great things about being back into it is I just really enjoying it. It's nothing against IGT, fine company, a lot of nice people there, but this is much more my environment. I love being with, the people that I'm with and love chasing the business and being hungry and trying to be creative. And, you mentioned this earlier, but, with us, don't take a whole lot of thinking to come up and pursue ideas. I do these meetings with the entire team. The folks in the office come into the conference room. The folks out in the field can dial in, on a video call. And I sort of talk about where we are with the business and update everybody and then take questions. One of the questions at the last one we had last week was, you're doing a lot of stuff with the Knights. How come we're not doing anything with the Aces? This is a woman who works in the auditing department in our office, and she's an Aces fan. And I was like, you're right. We really, we should be doing something with the Aces, right? So that was last week, and now we've already come up with this, the promotion around, enter and win tickets to a game. We're going to do other promotions tied to the number of points that players score in the game. Right? And it's just because she had the idea.
That's a great idea.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a great idea. Of course, it's a great.
Why wouldn't you? Exactly.
Why wouldn't we? Right? Like, duh! I should have thought of that a year ago. Right? So shame on me, right? For for being focused on other sports, right? But thankfully she brought it up, and so how quickly we can move.
Love that. Yes.
Is I think such a big advantage for us. We don't need this guy to approve it and that guy to
all
approve
the decision
it.
makers.
All the decision maker and the paralysis by analysis. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's fantastic. I got 2 more questions for you before you get out of here. One, ballpark it. How many team members does Boomers have?
Yeah, right now we're around 65 or so.
That's great. And they're all in Nevada?
100% in Nevada. Every single person
That's great.
who works for the company lives in Nevada. Most, here in the Las Vegas area. A number of people, obviously, in northern Nevada as well.
And then I asked Nick this question, and I don't remember the answer he gave precisely, but I remember it was a very, very intriguing answer. Sports betting goes through different stages, as does anything that sustains its longevity. Obviously, mobile betting is huge and everywhere now. Being legalized in a majority of the country is a huge deal. Maybe AI is being implemented somehow, some way. I'm not sure, but I guess as a 2-parter, are you able to utilize AI at all in your thing? And then also, where do you see the next phase of sports betting going to?
Yeah, such a great question. And I heard you ask it to Nick. But so using AI, yes, in a variety of areas, not nearly as much as I think we probably could or should or will in the future. But it can give you just like a good starting point on a lot of things, right? I don't think it replaces human judgment at the end of the day, but it can give you a foundation and help you understand about a topic.
Sure.
Before you kind of really get into it. And certainly, look, I'm sure customers are using it, who should win today's game, right? Well, that's not going to compensate for the bouncing of the ball and for the injury or what have you. But it's certainly a place to start. Yeah. So I think there'll be, additional adoption of AI. Clearly, there's been a big move not only to mobile, but also to in-play betting.
Yes.
To what we call prop betting, but betting on, how many points somebody is going to score in a game, or is Carlson going to get a goal, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And people do that maybe because they think they have an edge, because the line on that might not be as tight as it's going to be on an NFL game, and so maybe people can find advantage to it. But also, it also makes the game a lot more interesting for people, and keeps people engaged, right up to the end.
Of course.
And so I think that continues to evolve. I'm not a fan of some of the like super micro market type things, because they can be susceptible to manipulation.
Absolutely.
Is the next pitch going to be a ball or strike type of thing? And we saw some issues with that last season. I think it was with the Guardians, or I think they were the Guardians by that point. But things that make it more fun for the lay better.
Yes.
Right. Promotions. Right. It's a competitive business, a very competitive business in Nevada. Right. There's a lot of choices the consumer has. I got 4 sports betting apps on my phone. We tell everybody, check the price. Right. We talked about margin and checking the price. Look, it's getting the Boomers app. It's not like a marriage. Like, you don't have to like break up with your first spouse, right, to marry your second.
Yeah.
Right. You can keep your old app, keep your existing app, and just get the Boomers app, and then check the price. Yeah. And when you're getting a better payoff with Boomers, or if the Patriots are playing the Eagles, and the Eagles are -4 with Boomers and -4.5 with some other book, well, you're going to bet with Boomers if you want to lay the 4.
That's right.
And if you want to take the 4.5, you're going to be betting with somebody else. So just check the price and figure, if the parlay, plug in the parlay you want to bet, see what it pays with us, see what it pays with the competition, and just bet with us. Just check the price. That's all you got to do.
Do your due diligence. Listen, you want to sustain in this, you can't just throw out money and hope for the best. I mean, you really do have to put in the work and treat it as something where you are investing your money into something that, you want to succeed, and obviously you want to win. So it makes no sense for people to not check the price, to not, have one app open in this one and, one app open in that one, and see where the value is.
Well, and it's different for different people, I'd say, because like I get enjoyment out of the finding, checking the price at the various apps that I use and trying to figure out what's the bet. That's part of the enjoyment of betting for me, is the checking of the price. Some people just might not care. It's like, I can get the gallon of milk at the Albertsons, and it'll be cheaper, or I can get it at the Whole Foods and pay more, or I can get it at the gas station right by my house. And I'm just gonna, maybe it's just the convenience. I don't want to think about it, or whatever. So but yeah, people have different preferences, and that's totally cool. Yeah. I've got a friend of mine who's a regular bettor, and he bets with us, and he bets at other places too, depending on where he likes the price. And like me, he enjoys the looking around and trying to figure it out, and so that's just part of the fun of it, right? And it can be fun if you just kind of look at it from that perspective, and find things that interest you and that make it more enjoyable.
Well said. Well, this episode, unfortunately, won't air until after Father's Day. It's going to be the Thursday after Father's Day, but we're shooting the Thursday before Father's Day. This Father's Day, I'm going to hang out with my dad, and my dad and I are probably going to go and place some bets on some sports. He's not registered with Boomers yet. So here in Vegas, where can I take my dad to register for Boomers?
Thank you for the question. You can take him over to Ellis Island, which is, of course, right behind the strip on Koval. You can take him over to Silver Sevens, Flamingo in Paradise.
Love that.
Very easy ingress and egress, surface parking over there. In North Las Vegas, you can go to Ojos Locos to sign up. And, there's a bunch of places outside of this is you and your dad, but somebody's listening, right? If somebody's listening elsewhere, we're even in Tonopah at the Mitzpah, Carson City at the Fandango. We talked about Elko, up in Lake Tahoe. A lot of people like to go up to Tahoe this time of year. It's gorgeous up there. We're in Incline Village at the Hyatt, the Grand Lodge up there. And so, there's plenty of locations. You can go on. Bet with Boomer is the website where you can go on and find out where's the closest location for folks to sign up.
Love that. Brian, are you convinced to sign up now? Did we finally convince you to become a member of Boomers?
Yeah, I'll place a bet, but if I lose, you pay me back.
If you lose, I'm changing my phone number. Well, Joe, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing not only your story, but Boomers. And I'm so excited to see the growth of Boomers. I always love, when it comes to sports betting, when it comes to business, I mean, you're covering all my bases. And I could, like I said, I could talk to you for hours on end. But I know Brian's got to go because he's exhausted. He had a long day. But Joe, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You got a great studio here, and I
you.
appreciate you letting me hang out here for a little bit.
All right, Brian, pop quiz before I hit this outro. I bet $110 on a minus 110 bet. How much do I get back if I win?
$100.
Nicely done. Now, if I'm betting with Boomers, and I bet 105.
I got the first one right.
Okay, fine. All right. Catch new episodes each week on HeyBigHead.com. Happy Father's Day to everybody. We'll see you next week.
That's fun. That's fun.
Well done, Joe. You killed it.
Thank
That
you.
was great.